Late summer, Kingston, Ontario, and the people climbing aboard the Canadian Empress for a 600-mile trip down the St. Lawrence River all the way to Quebec City are in for a thrill.
Welcome aboard the Empress. We're heading to Quebec City. Would you like to join us, sir?
Yes, I would.
Hello, nice to have you aboard. Hello, welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome. Hi, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Nice to have you aboard. Pleasure.
The full house of passengers on board the ship has come here from all over the world, and they have come here to see one of the most beautiful bodies of water anywhere in the world. The St. Lawrence River streams from the Great Lakes of North America out to the Atlantic Ocean, with only one cruise line making the trip throughout the summer. St. Lawrence Cruise Lines and its beautiful ship, the Canadian Empress. For 65 passengers and a 12-person crew, this trip begins in the spectacular Thousand Islands. All of this was the dream of one man, Mr. Bob Clark, a Thousand Islands businessman and real estate developer who literally dreamed that there should be a ship here.
We spent a lot of time on the river, and there's such a lot of the St. Lawrence River and the Thousand Islands is very nostalgic. There's lots of old cottages, 150-year-old cottages and stuff. And you couldn't help but think about the overnight cruise ships that used to be there. And it was the best way in the whole world to travel. If you were going to Kingston to Montreal, you went by boat. And in time then, they started taking automobiles with them as well. But by the mid-30s, 40s, the governments were building highways everywhere for General Motors and Ford. You build cars, we'll build your highways. And so the automotive really took over.
Bob knew that he would need a fireproof aluminum ship, so he and the shipbuilder designed and built one.
They made me an honorary architect. Because they said they've never had an owner so involved as I was.
Yeah.
But I'd draw pictures all weekend and then go down there on Monday and say, well, I think I want this and this.
Bob Clark's Canadian Empress was completed in 1980. Now it glides through the Thousand Islands at a very low top speed. Top speed for the Canadian Empress going through these waters is usually about 10 knots. And actually going through here, 10 knots is almost too fast. There's so much to see. The ship goes through so many narrow passageways between these islands. You don't want to go fast. The key is to make sure the ship travels at a very slow rate of speed, simply because looking at the land is such a beautiful part of the trip. And today's passengers get beautiful, fireproof tin ceilings while they're on board. The ship is fireproof top to bottom. A central salon with an elegant old-world bar, a giant roof deck on board with shuffleboard and endless views of Canada on one side, the United States on the other. And everyone gets one seriously nice room. A lot of times people think on a smaller ship you might get a smaller room or a smaller bathroom, small amount of personal space around you. That's not really the case when it comes to this ship because each room has been designed rather well. Plus, when you get into these corner rooms like this, which don't cost any more, you have 6 windows in this kind of an area. All you have is nothing but view, and yes, I could live here. And why not live here? The interiors are beautiful. Many of the rooms look like bedrooms in an older bed and breakfast, and that is a high compliment for a ship designed with old-world charm.
If you want to come in and I'll just give you a brief
We have one night
tour. A little bit different is that they're designed with portholes. Okay, you have the standard windows. Portholes also open as well.
It is a fabulous, constantly changing view rolling by your window, and you get one of the great advantages of river cruising. It's always smooth, all the time.
Now being served in the Grand Salon this evening, Melissa's on the dinner bell.
Interesting thing about the St. Lawrence Seaway is that it puts you right up next to what are called Great Lakes freighters, kind of a classic design that was meant to work just on the Great Lakes. Somewhat like the Edmund Fitzgerald, which most people know about, which sank back in 1975. That's the way the horns sound, and this is the way the classic lake freighter looks. This one built back in 1952. Take a closer look.
this is just fantastic. You can't believe it, what it's like until you get here. It's just super.
So you would recommend this to everybody back in Indiana?
I certainly would. Yeah, I certainly would. We've enjoyed it so far really well. We've done one other cruise. We did a schooner back in '83. I think it was '83, and we enjoyed that, a two-masted schooner up in Maine and the Penobscot Bay, and went through all the islands, and we enjoyed that, so we thought we'd try this too.
St. Lawrence Cruise Lines brought us all through the Thousand Islands and into the beautiful villages of eastern Canada. This is Gananoque, Ontario, mostly a shopping stop and a place where ship passengers meet local Canadians.
My friends own cottages out on the river, so we spent a lot of time going back and forth that way, and the beaches, Mallorytown Landing and Browns Bay.
Cottages that are like on individual islands?
Yes.
Is that fun? Is it dangerous? Is it exciting? It's to us, to people from any other part of the world, it looks like they're almost down too close to the water.
No. Well, there's cliffs and stuff sometimes, but that could be dangerous, but it's lots of fun.
Are you jumping in, swimming? Water skiing?
Yeah, all of those.
The Thousand Islands is like your backyard.
For sure. It's just you never think about it because it's so close to you unless you're not from here, and then that's one of the main things you come to.
But it's really spectacular. It's very, very pretty.
Yeah, for sure. It's really nice out today too.
Downstream, the Canadian Empress pulls into Upper Canada Village, a fully working town set in the year 1860. It looks like a tourist trap, but the town is a delight. Passengers literally don't want to leave at the end of the day.
I would love to have been there all day long. It was just really nice.
But the cruise has lots in store ahead for them, like moving through the vast lock system of the St. Lawrence Seaway. 7 locks in all, with the ship being handled by one of the great captains of the St. Lawrence Seaway, Captain Ratch Wallace.
The major locks of Canada and the U.S. are here. I love seeing all the ships. I've worked on many different kinds of ships, and some of them pass by from time to time. And I also very much like getting to the far end Quebec, which has a whole different range of geographic kind of areas. Just out of Montreal, there's the lowlands, the flatlands called batures, they're called, and they're sort of bird sanctuaries and all that.
The open water sailing is relatively easy, but Captain Wallace has to take the Empress into the St. Lawrence locks very carefully.
It was much deeper. I've been through locks on small boats, but it's a different process. It's bigger.
It's faster than I thought.
The water went down very, very fast, and I expected the front to open and let the water out that way, but I don't know where it went.
Pretty exciting though, coming down through here.
Oh, it's very exciting. I've been in this part of the world for a long time. We were here when it was being built, and we've watched it through the years, but this is the first time I've had a chance to actually participate in something like this.
Eisenhower lock, thank you. Canadian Empress.
Captain Wallace knows the river so well that he could run the Canadian Empress blindfolded, and no, he hasn't tried that. But he did the next best thing. Well away from those locks, he let me steer the ship for a while.
Here's your hat, man, as you choose. Yeah. Oh yeah, that looks good.
There you go.
47.
Yeah.
We'll just see what we can play with and see if we can get her done.
I just don't want to weave.
Well, don't worry about what you're. Come to port a little bit. Don't go. You're going to 50, so we want to go back to port. Yeah. So you got to look up here to see if you're having any effect.
This is far too frightening.
Well, yeah. I know what you mean.
Thank you. I think it is. That channel, you don't want to get out of that channel.
No,
yeah.
you don't. No, you don't. No, not a bit. So come to port a little bit, and look up at the effect you're having.
Yeah.
When
yeah,
it starts to move,
5.
51. When it comes down to 50, bring this back to midships. Okay, bring it back to midships, and it'll settle probably around 47. And if it doesn't, God help us.
Well, God managed to help us, and I did not run it aground, but it is hard to navigate a fast-flowing river. We can only describe a trip aboard the Canadian Empress as a magnificent experience. Few cruises have the company owner and his wife on board, eating and visiting with the passengers throughout the voyage, even fixing the curtains in some of the cabins. And few cruises have a hand-picked staff and crew specifically chosen for their knowledge of the environment and even the history of the region where they are.
I take a passion in knowing the history of my country and knowing how the relations went between the two provinces, Quebec and Ontario, and of how it interrelated with the United States also.
The Empress moves onward to the city of Montreal for day tours and then speeds downstream to Quebec City. The trip is more like an adventure than a cruise. It never has a dull moment, and with its relatively small size, just look at the ship next to some of the other ocean-going traffic, the passengers all end up becoming like a family by the time their week on board is up.
I've been all over Canada and I've never been here, so I'm looking forward to everything.
Even Montreal? Never been to Montreal?
Never been to Montreal, never been to Quebec. I don't know how I missed it, but I did, and so I wanted to do it.
So this has been, I won't go as far as to say trip of a lifetime, but good trip.
Yes, wonderful. I enjoy this. I enjoy this. Just listening to the water, looking at the scenery, finding out what all those big buildings are over there and elsewhere, what they're doing, their industry. Yes, I'm very curious about that.
Well, the best news of all is that St. Lawrence Cruise Lines will be here for a long time, considering owner Bob Clark will never retire. No retirement in sight for Bob Clark.
Oh, I can't imagine ever retiring. I have a hard time with Sundays, you know. That's why I'm the bell ringer at my church. Keeps me busy. Yeah, no, I'm a workaholic, and that's fine. Right now I'm on a binge. I'm not changing it.
And the next generation of Clarks is already in place. Nephew Jason is ready to step in and operate the company, and more importantly, not change a thing.
I appreciate the values of this company and the way in which it's run, and so I have not tried to change those. I've tried to keep it the way it has been all along. I mean, with the innovation of the computer, that enabled us to move forward with databases of clienteles and things like that. And so we have accepted those greater changes, but we've still kept the tradition of the passenger cruising very much the same.
Between the Clarks and their ship, St. Lawrence Cruise Lines is not going anywhere. It'll remain a fixture on the St. Lawrence Seaway, holding its place among the freighters and bringing people an experience they will never forget.